There is a hidden mechanical switch inside your nervous system that can force your blood pressure up, even when you are sitting perfectly still. As long as this biological trigger is stuck in the on position, your arteries remain tight and your numbers stay high, regardless of what you eat. I'm Dr. Ben Harris, and today I will show you exactly how to manually turn this off, along with 6 other hidden pressure triggers. Before we begin, I want to know where you are starting so we can track progress. Comment your age and usual top number range below. Let me tell you about Martha. Martha is 74 years old, and she has dealt with high blood pressure for over a decade. Her biggest problem was what doctors call white coat syndrome, but she also had it at home whenever she felt anxious, which was often. She would sit down to take her pressure, see a high number, feel panic, and then the next reading would be even higher. It was a vicious cycle. She felt like her body was fighting against her. We taught Martha a specific breathing protocol to use for 2 minutes before every measurement. She did not change her medication. She simply sat in her chair, performed the technique to turn off that sympathetic alarm, and then pressed the start button on her machine. The result was a 15-point drop in her top number simply because her vessels were no longer clamped tight by her own nervous system. This is a simple explanation of what is happening. Your heart rate and your breath are connected. When you inhale, your heart rate naturally speeds up slightly. When you exhale, it slows down. By extending your exhale so that it is longer than your inhale, you send a powerful signal up the vagus nerve to the brain saying that you are safe. The brain then stops sending the tighten up signal to the blood vessels. Here is exactly how to do it. You can do this anytime, but it is most effective right before you take a blood pressure reading or before you eat a meal. Sit comfortably in a chair with your feet flat on the floor. You are going to breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Then, you will hold that breath for a count of 7. Finally, you will exhale through your mouth, making a whooshing sound for a count of 8. It looks like this. Inhale quietly through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale completely through the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If 4, 7, 8 feels too difficult, or if you feel lightheaded, you can shorten it to inhaling for 4 and exhaling for 6. The critical part is that the exhale must be longer than the inhale. Do this for 4 cycles. It takes about 1 minute. If you have respiratory issues like COPD or asthma, do not force the breath holding. Just focus on a slow, gentle exhale through pursed lips, like you are blowing out a candle very slowly. This simple act manually overrides the stress response. It turns off the internal engine that is driving your pressure up. It is safe, free, and works almost instantly to prepare your body for a true resting measurement. By making this a habit, you support a calmer vascular system throughout the day. This is the most immediate way to influence your blood pressure because it deals with the nervous system, which controls the tightness of your blood vessels. Your body has an internal alarm system called the sympathetic nervous system. It is designed to save your life in an emergency by clamping down your blood vessels to keep pressure high. The problem for many adults over 60 is that this alarm system gets stuck. It stays on a low hum all day long due to chronic stress, pain, or simply the habit of rushing. We need to manually turn this off using a technique called resonance breathing. Here is why this matters. When you are in a state of sympathetic overdrive, your body is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals tell the smooth muscles around your arteries to contract. Imagine holding a garden hose and squeezing it tight. The water pressure builds up behind the squeeze. That is what is happening inside your arms and legs. You cannot simply think your way out of this state. You cannot just tell yourself to relax. You have to use a physical lever to force the body to switch gears into the parasympathetic mode, which is the rest and digest state. When you do this, the signals change, the chemicals shift, and the vessels physically dilate or open up. This leads us directly to the second most common reason for artificially high readings. You must turn off the noise or the errors that happen when you measure your blood pressure incorrectly. Studies suggest that a significant percentage of people diagnosed with hypertension might actually have lower numbers, but they are measuring in a way that adds points to the reading. We call this measurement artifact or noise. If you do not turn this off, you will never know your true numbers, and you might be prescribed more medication than you actually need. Let's look at James. James is 68 years old. He was very diligent about tracking his health. He measured his blood pressure every morning at the kitchen table. However, his numbers were erratic. Some days they were perfect, other days they were dangerously high. He was worried that his medication had stopped working. When we reviewed his routine, we found two major errors. First, he often measured his pressure immediately after breakfast, while still drinking his coffee. Second, he sat on a tall bar stool with his legs dangling and crossed at the ankles. These seem like small details, but they were adding roughly 10 to 15 points to his reading. Once James corrected his posture and timing, his numbers stabilized, and he realized his medication was working perfectly fine. Here is the simple explanation. Blood pressure is a measurement of hydraulic pressure in a closed system. Gravity and muscle tension affect that pressure. If your feet are dangling, your body has to work harder to return blood to the heart. If your legs are crossed, you are physically compressing major blood vessels, which increases resistance. If your bladder is full, your body creates tension in the pelvic region, which radiates outward and raises blood pressure. All of these are noise that mask your true heart health. To turn off this noise, you need a strict protocol. Treat this like a scientific experiment. First, the bladder must be empty. A full bladder can add 10 points to your reading. Go to the bathroom before you sit down. Second, proper support is non-negotiable. Sit in a chair with a hard back, like a dining chair. Do not use a soft sofa or a recliner where you sink back, as this changes the angle of your body. Your back must be supported. Your feet must be flat on the floor, side by side. Do not cross your ankles or your knees. Third, look at your arm position. Your arm should be resting on a flat surface, like a table, at the level of your heart. If your arm is dangling at your side, the reading will be too high. If your arm is held up high above your shoulder, the reading will be too low. Use a pillow under your arm if the table is too low. The cuff should be on bare skin, not over a sweater or a shirt sleeve. Rolling up a tight sleeve can create a tourniquet effect, which also skews the numbers. Finally, you need silence. Talking during a measurement, or even listening to someone else talk, can raise your systolic pressure, that top number, by 10 points. Sit quietly for 5 minutes before you push the button. This allows your fluid levels to settle and your heart rate to normalize. If you find that your numbers are vastly different between your left and right arm, check both initially and then consistently use the arm that gives the higher reading, as that is the one doctors worry about. However, a small difference is normal. By following this checklist, you turn off the variables that confuse the data. You get a clear, honest picture of what is happening inside your arteries. This supports steadier readings and gives you peace of mind that you are reacting to facts, not errors. Number 3, turn off the sodium faucet. This is a long-term lever that is often misunderstood. When I say turn off the sodium faucet, I am not talking about the salt shaker on your dining table. For most older adults, the salt you add to your eggs or your vegetables is not the primary problem. The problem is the hidden sodium faucet that is running constantly in the background from processed and packaged foods. Turning this off does not mean eating bland, tasteless food. It means identifying the sources you do not suspect. Sodium acts like a sponge for water. When you have excess sodium in your bloodstream, your body holds onto water to dilute it. This extra water increases the total volume of blood flowing through your system. Imagine turning on the faucet for a garden hose but not opening the nozzle. The pressure inside the hose skyrockets. That is what happens in your arteries. As we age, our kidneys become less efficient at filtering out this excess sodium, making us more salt-sensitive. Consider the case of Alara, who is 71. Alara thought she was eating a heart-healthy diet. She avoided red meat and greasy foods. Her lunch every day was a bowl of vegetable soup and a turkey sandwich. She never added salt to her food. Yet, she struggled with swollen ankles and stubborn high blood pressure. When we looked at the labels, we realized her healthy canned soup contained nearly 1,000 milligrams of sodium per serving, and the deli turkey and bread added another 1,000. She was consuming her entire daily limit in one meal. Alara switched to making a large batch of homemade vegetable soup on Sundays with low-sodium broth, and she swapped the deli meat for leftover roasted chicken. Within 2 weeks, the swelling in her ankles disappeared, and her top blood pressure number dropped by 8 points. Here's the simple explanation. Processed foods rely on sodium not just for flavor, but for preservation and texture. Bread, for example, is a major source of sodium in the senior diet, not because it tastes salty, but because we eat it often. Cottage cheese, salad dressings, and even breakfast cereals can be high in sodium. To turn off this faucet, you need to become a label detective. Do not look at the claims on the front of the package like healthy or natural. Turn the package over and look at the nutrition facts. Look specifically at the sodium line. You want to aim for foods that have less than 140 milligrams of sodium per serving. This is considered a low-sodium food. Be careful with condiments. Soy sauce, ketchup, and barbecue sauce are concentrated sources of sodium. A single tablespoon can derail your efforts. Try using lemon juice, vinegar, garlic, onion powder, and fresh herbs to flavor your food instead. These add zest without the pressure spike. Another trap to avoid is the reduced sodium label. This label simply means the product has 25% less sodium than the original version. If the original was incredibly salty, the reduced version is still very salty. Always check the actual number of milligrams. For those who enjoy baking or cooking, be aware that baking soda and baking powder also contain sodium. If you change your diet drastically, be sure to monitor your blood pressure. If you are on medication, particularly diuretics, water pills, reducing sodium can make these drugs more effective, and your doctor might eventually need to lower your dose to prevent your pressure from going too low. By identifying and eliminating these hidden sources, you lower the fluid volume in your blood vessels naturally. You are turning off the supply line that keeps the pressure high. This supports better kidney function and reduces the burden on your heart. If you are finding these tips helpful, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach more people who need this information. Number 4. Turn off vascular stiffness. One of the natural consequences of aging is that our arteries tend to become stiffer. They lose some of their elasticity. When your heart pumps, a flexible artery expands to accept the blood flow. A stiff artery does not expand as easily, which forces the pressure up. You can think of this like an old, dried-out rubber band versus a new, stretchy one. However, you can temporarily turn off this stiffness and force the vessels to relax using a specific type of movement timing. We are talking about the 10-minute post-meal walk. This is a powerful same-day lever. Let's talk about Robert, age 79. Robert lived a quiet life and spent most of his afternoon sitting in his favorite recliner watching history documentaries. He noticed that his blood pressure was often highest in the late afternoon. He also felt sluggish and heavy after lunch. Robert made one small change. He did not join a gym or start jogging. Instead, immediately after finishing his lunch, he would put on his shoes and walk for 10 minutes. Sometimes he walked around his block. If the weather was bad, he walked laps inside his house or marched in place while watching TV. This simple activity prevented his afternoon slump and kept his blood pressure readings significantly lower than before. Here is the simple explanation. When you move your muscles, specifically the large muscles in your legs, you increase blood flow. As blood flows over the inner lining of your arteries, it creates a friction called shear stress. This friction stimulates the production of a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a gas that acts as a signal to the arterial walls to relax and widen. It is the body's natural vasodilator. Furthermore, walking after a meal helps direct glucose, sugar, from your blood into your muscles to be used for energy. This prevents a blood sugar spike. Since high insulin levels can cause the kidneys to retain sodium, keeping your blood sugar stable also helps keep your blood pressure stable. The two are linked. How to do it is very simple. The timing is the key. You want to move within 30 minutes of finishing a meal. It does not need to be fast. A casual, comfortable pace is perfect. You should be able to hold a conversation while you do it. If you are out of breath, you are going too hard. Aim for 10 to 15 minutes. This is easy on the joints and does not require recovery time. If you have mobility issues or balance problems, you can achieve a similar effect by doing seated marches. Sit in a sturdy chair and march your legs up and down, pumping your arms for 10 minutes. The goal is continuous, rhythmic movement. Be cautious if you have any chest pain, severe shortness of breath, or dizziness. Stop immediately and sit down. If these symptoms persist, seek medical attention. But for most people, this is one of the safest and most effective therapies available. By adding this short burst of activity, you are manually stimulating the production of nitric oxide. You are turning off the stiffness that sets in when we sit still for too long. This supports healthy circulation and helps blunt the impact of a meal on your system. We have covered the nervous system, the measurement errors, the hidden dietary triggers, and the stiffness of the vessels. But there is another major system we need to address, one that acts as a bridge between your blood pressure and your metabolic health. In the second part of this video, I will show you how to turn off the insulin spike, which is often the silent driver behind high pressure in older adults. I will also explain how to turn off the nighttime alert that ruins your sleep and keeps pressure high overnight. These next steps are crucial because your body is an interconnected system. You cannot fully fix one part while ignoring the others. Let's continue to the next item to see how your breakfast choices might be keeping your arteries rigid. Number 5. Turn off the insulin spike. This item serves as a bridge, connecting your blood pressure control directly to your blood sugar management. Many people treat these as two separate problems, but in the body of an adult over 60, they are often the same problem manifesting in two different ways. High levels of insulin, which is the hormone that handles blood sugar, can physically harden your arteries and force your kidneys to hoard salt. To lower your blood pressure, you must turn off the massive spikes in insulin that happen after carbohydrate-heavy meals. Let me introduce you to Sarah, who is 66. Sarah had what her doctor called borderline everything. Her blood sugar was slightly high, and her blood pressure was creeping up into the 140s. She felt that because she wasn't fully diabetic, she didn't need to worry too much about sugar. She ate a standard breakfast of 2 pieces of toast with jam and a glass of orange juice. She felt this was a light, healthy start. However, this meal was causing a rapid spike in her blood sugar, followed by a surge of insulin. By mid-morning, she was tired, and her blood pressure was elevated. We asked Sarah to make one swap. She switched her toast and juice for 2 scrambled eggs and a half cup of berries. This increased her protein and eliminated the refined sugar. Within a week, her morning energy was stable, and her blood pressure readings began to drift down into the 130s. Here's the simple explanation. When you eat refined carbohydrates like bread, sugary cereal, or juice, your blood sugar shoots up. Your pancreas responds by flooding your system with insulin to push that sugar into your cells. High insulin is inflammatory. It damages the delicate inner lining of your blood vessels, making them stiff and less able to dilate. Additionally, insulin signals your kidneys to reabsorb sodium rather than peeing it out. So, a high sugar meal effectively acts like a high salt meal in your body. To turn off this spike, you do not need to cut out all carbohydrates, but you must change the order and the type. Prioritize protein and healthy fats at breakfast. A high-protein breakfast stabilizes your blood sugar for the entire day. Eggs, Greek yogurt, or even leftovers from dinner are excellent choices. If you eat carbohydrates, choose those with fiber, like oatmeal or berries, and eat them after your protein, not before. This is a simple change that pays off double. You protect your arteries from sugar damage, and you help your kidneys release excess fluid. This leads us to the critical nighttime habits that might be undoing all your hard work during the day. Number 6. Turn off the nighttime alert. This is perhaps the most critical lever for your long-term heart health, yet it is the one most people ignore. We are talking about the quality of your sleep and, specifically, the light exposure you get in the hour before bed. Your blood pressure is not meant to stay the same 24 hours a day. In a healthy body, your blood pressure should drop by 10 to 20% while you sleep. Doctors call this nocturnal dipping. It is a period of deep rest where your heart slows down and your arteries are under the least amount of mechanical stress. It is like turning off the engine of a car to let it cool down. However, for many seniors, this dip never happens. They are what we call non-dippers. Their blood pressure stays high all night long, meaning their heart never gets a break. One of the biggest reasons for this is the nighttime alert signal triggered by blue light and stimulating media. Let's look at David, who is 72. David was a retired engineer who liked to stay informed. Every night from 10 to midnight, he sat in his living room watching cable news and political commentary. He felt he was just relaxing, but the content made him feel frustrated and anxious. On top of that, the bright light from the television was shining directly into his eyes. When David wore a 24-hour blood pressure monitor, we saw that his pressure actually went up at night instead of down. He was sleeping, but his body was in a state of low-grade fight or flight. David made 2 changes. He turned off the TV at 9 in the evening and switched to listening to an audiobook or classical music. He also dimmed the lights in his living room. Within 3 weeks, his nighttime pressure began to dip normally again, and his morning readings, which had always been his highest, dropped significantly. Here is the simple explanation. Your brain interprets bright blue spectrum light, the kind that comes from TVs, phones, tablets, and LED bulbs, as sunlight. When your eyes detect this light, your brain suppresses the production of melatonin, the sleep hormone. But more importantly, it keeps your cortisol levels elevated. Cortisol is the stress hormone that keeps blood pressure up. If you are watching news that makes you angry or a movie that is suspenseful, you are adding emotional adrenaline to the mix. You might fall asleep eventually, but the quality of that sleep is shallow and your blood vessels remain constricted. To turn off this alert, you need a digital sunset. Pick a time, preferably 1 hour before you want to be asleep, and turn off all screens. No phone, no tablet, no computer, and no television. Replace that time with analog activities. Read a physical book or a magazine, listen to a podcast or the radio, work on a puzzle. If you must use a device, you need to use night mode settings that turn the screen orange, or wear blue light blocking glasses, which are amber-tinted glasses that filter out the stimulating rays. Also, look at the lighting in your room. If you have bright white LED bulbs in your bedside lamp, swap them for soft white or warm bulbs with a lower wattage. You want your environment to mimic a cave, dark, cool, and quiet. If you wake up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, do not turn on the main overhead light. That blast of brightness can instantly wake up your nervous system and spike your pressure. Use a dim nightlight in the hallway and bathroom instead. This habit supports the natural circadian rhythm of your heart. It allows your vessels to relax fully for 8 hours, which reduces the overall wear and tear on your cardiovascular system. Here is another helpful reminder. If you are enjoying these practical tips, please subscribe to the channel. We are building a community of people dedicated to simple, medication-free improvements. Number 7. Turn off the thirst signal. We often think of thirst as simply needing a drink, but in the context of blood pressure, thirst is a sign that your body is already in a state of vasoconstriction. We need to turn off the biological trigger that tells your body it is in a drought. Chronic, low-grade dehydration is an incredibly common cause of high blood pressure in adults over 60, often because we intentionally stop drinking water to avoid frequent trips to the bathroom. When you are dehydrated, your blood volume drops slightly, but the blood itself becomes thicker or more viscous. To compensate for this lower volume and to maintain flow to your vital organs, your body releases a hormone called vasopressin. The name tells you exactly what it does. Vasopressin. It presses or constricts the vessels. It tightens your arteries to squeeze the blood through. This raises your blood pressure. Consider Linda, who is 80 years old. Linda was very active but struggled with bladder urgency. To cope, she developed a habit of drinking only 1 cup of coffee in the morning and a small glass of water with dinner. She rarely drank anything in between. Her blood pressure was stubbornly high, and she also suffered from dizziness when standing up. We explained to Linda that her blood vessels were clamped tight because her body was trying to hoard water. We put her on a front-loaded hydration schedule. She drank the majority of her water before 2 in the afternoon. This allowed her to hydrate her cells without disrupting her sleep with bathroom trips. Her dizziness vanished and her resting blood pressure stabilized because her body stopped releasing vasopressin. Here is the simple explanation. Think of your blood like a river. If the river is full and flowing freely, it moves easily. If the water level drops and becomes muddy or thick, it moves slowly, and you have to pump it harder to get it to move. Water makes your blood thinner and easier for your heart to pump. It also helps your kidneys flush out the excess sodium we discussed earlier. To turn off this thirst signal, you need a strategy that respects your bladder health. I recommend the 8x2 rule. Aim to drink 8 cups of water, or hydrating fluid, by 2 p.m. Start your day with a large glass of water immediately upon waking. You lose a lot of fluid while you sleep through breathing and sweating. Rehydrating first thing in the morning thins the blood and helps wake up your metabolism. Then, have a glass of water with every meal and one in between meals. If you struggle with the taste of plain water, infuse it with slices of cucumber, lemon, or a few crushed berries. Herbal teas, like hibiscus tea, which has been shown to support healthy blood pressure, count toward your total. Avoid relying on coffee or black tea for hydration. While they provide fluid, the caffeine acts as a mild diuretic, causing you to lose some fluid, and it can temporarily spike blood pressure in sensitive individuals. If you found this guide helpful, please share it. There is likely someone in your circle, a friend, a spouse, a sibling, who is struggling with their numbers and doesn't know about these hidden triggers. If you know someone over 50 who could benefit from this, share this video. And subscribe for more simple blood pressure and blood sugar tips. I'm Dr. Ben Harris, and I'll see you in the next video.